So today we have Michael, who's going to be talking to us about 3 tips for landing the Scrum Master interview. Michael, over to you.
Hey, well, thanks so much for the introduction. First, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. I am outside in Conway, Arkansas, and I learned just a little bit ago that I'm not very far away from a train. And so if a train should start passing, I'm going to mute myself so that I don't hurt anyone and then I'll jump right back in and go from there. And so we're going to talk today about some tips for winning the interview, probably. So we're going to take the assumption that you've already worked on the resume and you've already done the things and you've gotten the interview. So now we're going to talk about how do you win, which is great because several of you in the chat mentioned feeling like you're talking too much, getting a little bit nervous, which sometimes having some nerves leads us to talking too much or cutting ourselves off too shortly. It really depends on, which lane we go in there. And there were a few people, maybe 2 people, who mentioned something about feeling like you're bragging or talking too much about yourself. And I just want to remind you of something. First, talking about your achievements and your experiences is not bragging if you actually did those things. It's just relating to people the things that you've done. If you haven't done those things, one, it's lying. And so don't lie. And then there's an element of braggadocio and arrogance that comes from that and makes us add to our achievements. And so if you can keep your stories in the interview to the things that you have actually done, the things you have accomplished, the teams you have been a part of, the meetings that you have led, the projects that you've been collaborating with, those are all great things. And as a reminder, if you don't tell the interviewer those things, they will not know them about you. And then you're likely not going to get to the next step in the process. So be sure that you are all in on talking about your achievements in the world of Scrum, Agile, and projects. So that's fantastic. Kat, are we ready for me to share and get into presentation? All right. If at any point in time this presentation seems pointless, then we can shift gears and we can move into a different direction and answer questions. If you have some questions, then feel free to drop those in the chat as was stated with a Q in the front, and we will get to them as we can. And then there will be time at the end for just kind of like open forum discussion, and we will go from there. This will boom. Yes. Sorry, Kat, had to take over the screen from you there. So, all right, 3 tips to winning an interview for Scrum Masters. Essentially, we want to talk about how do you stand out. You're likely going to be one of many people interviewing in these roles. And so you want to do the things that other people aren't doing when you're trying to land the job. All right, first, these roles are competitive because lots of people are going to want them. So prepping, it's important. So how do you do it? We're going to talk about doing your homework, researching the company, its culture, its mission, its values, its problems. Because if you know the company's problems, then you can address how to solve them in your interview. Mastering the STAR method. If you have questions about the STAR method, ask. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I'm not going to lie about my ability. But understanding, and we'll break down the STAR and what all those letters stand for, and then showcasing your experience through real examples. And we'll talk more about that. It's hard for me. I don't want to dive in too quickly. So let's talk about tip number 1. Do your homework. Before you get to the interview, if you've applied to a company and you've gotten the message, hey, we're going to do something, you're going to get a recruiter screening or something like that. So understand the company's agile maturity. Are they just now starting this, or have they been using this for a long time? Like, what's their process there? And understand their work environment, their work culture as much as possible. See if there are people that you're connected to that might be able to answer some questions about the company as much as possible. Check the website if the company has a website, and there you can find out what their mission, vision, values are. And you can understand more about the company the more you understand, the more you can understand how to answer the questions in a way that helps you position yourself as a standout candidate. Also, it shows that you're invested in them and interested in them. And here's a little tip I've learned. Feel free to disagree, but be kind. People who show interest become interesting. And if you can be an interesting interviewee, you're more likely to get to the next round. So show interest in the company, show interest in their mission, in their vision, in their values, in their culture, and it helps you establish yourself as a more interesting candidate. So what do you want to research? All right, their agile maturity. What frameworks do they use? What methods do they use? What tools, what products, programs do they use? And their team structure. Are they global? What's their communication pattern? You want to know as many of those things as possible. So let me ask, when it comes to, and this is where you like, put it in the chat, okay? Answer this question in the chat. When you're researching a company, to you, what is the most important thing to find out before you begin the interview? If you could only find out one thing in your research of a company, what is that one thing that you would like to find out? Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, yeah. What's the competition doing? Pain points. Who's the interviewer? So you know a little bit about the person interviewing you. Is that why you want to know them? So love it. Definitely want to think about those things. Challenges that they are facing. I think if we can identify what are the problems they're facing, what are the challenges they're facing, it definitely allows you to position yourself as a solution to those. And that is always a solid place to get into. Another question is, how do you, when you're researching the company, how do you find out about their work culture, their work environment, and things like that? Like, how would you do it?
Maybe connect with other folks on LinkedIn that are from the company.
For sure. For sure. I think that's a great way. Also, like, probably don't just take one person's word for it, though. Like you're going to get a really, really negative view from one person, but then you may get a glowing review from another person. Beware of people who have been, this is going to sound terrible, but sometimes people who have recently left a company or been fired or let go from a company will have a very negative opinion of that company, but it might not be actually a super negative company. So talk to more than one person if possible and figure that out. Also, like, what's the work expectation? What time expectation do they have, right? And things like that. So I think that's a great idea there. All good things. Yes, look at Glassdoor. Check out those reviews. Again, just understand that some of those reviews might be people who are really, really upset with the company. And so just pay attention to that. All right. We're going to move to tip number 2. Again, not going to spend a lot of time on these because I want us to have discussion. So here, master the STAR method. And if the STAR method seems overwhelming, we're going to talk about one more called the CAR method. But this is going to help you frame your responses and to talk about your stories. People remember stories, and they might not remember your name, but they can remember the story you told if you do it well. So with the STAR method, you're going to talk about the situation. So what was going on? What was the project? What was the epic? What were we working on? What were the goals, objectives? Then what was your responsibility? What was the task that you were in charge of? Then what did you do? What actions did you take? And result, what was the outcome? So let's play a game in the chat. So what I want you to do is we're going to take a little bit of time here and we're going to think through this question. Tell me about a time you handled team conflict. If you can, then use the STAR method in the chat to tell us about a time you handled team conflict. If handling team conflict is not really something that you're comfortable talking about, then tell us about a time that you handled a technological challenge or a difficult maybe work assignment, but use the STAR method to do it. So remember, set the scene. Tell us what was going on, what was the objective, task, what was your responsibility, action, what steps did you take, and result, what was the outcome. And this does not mean that you always accomplished the goal, okay? Sometimes the result is that we didn't actually accomplish our goal, but we learned something from it. So take a little bit of time and then jump into the chat and use the STAR method to try and answer the question of, tell us about a time you dealt with some conflict, or that you handled a technological challenge, or you were given a difficult work assignment. Also a question, when I click on the chat, can everyone still see my screen, or does it go to something different?
I'm seeing something different.
All right. What about when I do that? What are you seeing now?
Now I see this, but I still keep seeing whoever's last talked in a little picture-in-picture.
Let's see if I can adjust the view to boom. I don't see that option for me. So what I'll do then is I will quit looking into the chat to see what people's responses are so that the presentation doesn't leave the window. So thank you. I believe it was Vicky for that information. And then at the end, we'll go through and we'll talk through some more. But I still want to give everyone time to answer the questions in the chat. And so try and use the STAR method. And this is an opportunity to be confident in the work that you actually did, right? Like, you've handled conflict before with your team. If you've worked with a team, you've done that. And so be sure that be okay with talking about that, as long as it's a comfortable situation for you. But if you don't want to talk about that, you've definitely worked through difficult technological challenges. This is an example of, for me, not having my computer with my extra screen, so I'm having to do things on my iPad. So I'm learning as I go on some of this, but just becoming comfortable with telling your story with confidence so that others can see the value that you bring. All right, and now I'm going to go to tip 3. Showcase your experience. You're not just a facilitator. You're a person who leads teams to success. You ensure that your team is equipped with the tools that they need. You ensure that your team has the empowerment to make decisions that need to be made. You stay engaging with your team, and then you evaluate the process. There are 4 E's right there. You equip them, you empower them, you engage them, you evaluate. If you can talk about how you equip, empower, engage, and evaluate, you're going to put yourself in a better position for standing out. So remember, you're not just a facilitator, you're not just a meeting leader who, taking notes, but you're a person who makes sure that each person of the team understands his or her responsibility and the goals of the team and how they can best fit. So Demonstrate your Scrum knowledge through specific examples of Scrum ceremonies, agile frameworks, agile projects, adjustments that you've made. And then share the metrics, like how did you increase velocity? How did you work with backlog refinement? What was your sprint delivery rate? Or what other important metrics can you use to talk about your experience? This is also where it matters that if the person interviewing you does not know Scrum language, which is possible, especially if you're on the first round of interviews, they may know the job description, but they may not have specific experience in the role. And so you don't want to overwhelm them with language they don't understand. But you can help the job description can help you understand how to talk about your experiences. So when you're in the interview, use your resume and the job description to determine the language that you should be using, and then focus on your ability to solve problems, remove blockers, coach teams. Ultimately, when you're leading the team, what outcomes do you get? And talk about those, frame those so that others can see them. So in the story that you just used, maybe you want to use that one for this particular activity. If not, that's fine. But write one, I helped a team do what? So start your sentence with, I helped a team. What did you help the team do? Did you reduce cycle time by 20%? Did you do something else with sprint delivery rate? Did you do something else with communication patterns? Did you do something else with bringing agile into an organization? Like, what was your, I helped the team do blank? And I'll give you about 60 to 90 seconds to work through that.
Michael, while everybody's working on that, there was a question about what the 4 E's are. We don't have them on the screen, and so I'm going to type them out in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, no problem. And here's, like I said, Ange, that was one of my spontaneity things, right? I didn't have that in my notes. It came in the moment. I'm like, oh man, why didn't I put this in the notes? But how did you equip your team? So equip them with the right tools, empower them with the right authority. Please get the equipping part before you give the empowering part. Often we empower people to make decisions, but we don't give them the tools they need, and that just leads to frustration. If people have the authority to make a decision, but don't have the tools to make that decision or to get that particular job done, they'll be exhausted. So equip your team, empower your team, engage with your team, and then evaluate the outcomes, evaluate the process, and do it again. So let's see, equip, empower, engage, evaluate. We could probably add more E's if we wanted to just for fun, but that's not in the exercise list.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for asking the question. Hey, since I can't leave and go into the chat, are people using the chat?
So far, we just have one story in the chat.
All right. I'll just take that to mean people are thinking about their story and they don't want to feel like they're bragging. Well, I don't want to just sit here and stay idle because I have attention issues, and so silence bugs me.
Would you like maybe somebody who's written something to actually speak for themselves instead of us reading it? Is
Absolutely.
it okay for one of the folks who has put something in the chat or who hasn't and wants to speak up? Maybe this is a good time. Just raise your hand or just start talking.
Yeah, that's great. Again, I'm not going to be able to see anybody, so you all take care of that.
There is some good stuff in the chat, so definitely come forward if you can.
Yeah, I can go. Thanks, Anjay. Yeah, so I'm Nitigya. So I have helped improve agile maturity for a team by 30% within 6 months by performing agile baseline assessment and identifying and driving CI initiatives successfully with the team.
That's fantastic. that's definitely something you're going to want to talk about in the interview. Now, they may have more questions, so tell us, okay, how did you determine the steps? What assessment tools did you use, and all those types of things? So have some more stuff on the backside of that. But what a great beginning to an accomplishment. Way to go.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, well, I don't hear anyone else going, so I'm going to move on to, we just talked about the 3 tips. Okay, do your homework, research the company, its culture, understand the mission, vision, values, and how you can be able to, or you will be able to solve the problems they have, the pain points they have. Master the STAR method for behavioral questions. So, tell me about a time when, and then showcase your Scrum expertise with real world examples. So I want to take a moment right here, and I want to dive into 2 and 3, and I want to caution you. Often when I'm working with clients on interview best practices, they will get really, really good at talking about how they do things, but they will forget to get specific with their examples. So how do you manage your daily stand-ups? So tell me how you do that to make sure that the team understands the objectives for the day or for the sprint. How do you allocate work breakdown? How do you do those things? Be really, really clear on the how you do them. But then, and remember this, give specific examples of a time that you did it. Okay, so give the how and then give the for example. Very specific, very clear, because that's what people remember. They remember that story. And it's always a good idea to add an element of challenge in your story and how you were able to adapt and overcome and still reach your goals. So final thoughts. We practiced a little bit, but keep practicing. Practice predicts performance. If you practice, you're going to perform better. Research the companies that align to your responses. Refine your Scrum story. And thank you for being here with us today. So now, if you have some questions, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm just going to be here so we can talk together.
Ooh, I encourage anybody to come up. This is awesome. Sometimes you have to pay lots of money to do this. So this is your best opportunity to get this started.
Hey, Michael, I'm Charlene, and I'm sorry I missed part of this because my laptop rebooted.
No
So I
worries,
don't know if you
Charlene. Glad you're
covered
here.
this or not. But I am an agile coach. I interview Scrum Masters, so I'm here to just think about some out of the box things. So I appreciate you sharing. Also, I just wanted to mention, and I know that at my company we ask this question, a lot of others they do as well, but just to remind everybody, be prepared to answer the question about how you deal with conflict in a situational uh, way, so to speak, because that's going to be pretty much asked probably by everybody. Because as we know, there's always going to be some sort of conflicts within teams, or maybe conflicts with handling dependencies within teams. I always look for, not just, yes, I can do that, but, I need someone to answer it and give me a situational response where you handled
Yeah.
it and how you handled it and, the way that you handled it. So just throwing that out there. Thank you.
No, for sure. That's an excellent point to make. Thank you so much. And when you're working with teams, you almost always have some element of conflict. In fact, if you don't have an example of conflict yet, you're going to have one soon, or your team isn't actually working together. And so because people have conflict or you face challenges together. So thank you, Charlene, for that. And it's definitely something to be ready to talk about. Another question to be sure that you have a good answer to is, what is one area for growth or an area of weakness for you? I often see candidates throw themselves out of the running because they don't know how to answer that question. And so be sure that you have an answer that doesn't disqualify you from the role, because an area of weakness for you is a non-negotiable for the company. So do some research and know what areas of weakness or areas for growth are reasonable and things that are easily trainable. I always tell my clients, like, we land on something together when we're doing interview sessions, a weakness that is easily trainable within the company so that it's not an area that's going to disqualify you. So land there. What are some key indicators that the interviewer doesn't understand what I'm talking about? That's an excellent question, Jeremy. Thank you. Let's talk about it. What are y'all's thoughts? If you're in an interview, and how do you know? Charlene, you interview people. So what would be your suggestions here?
I'm sorry, some other team was pinging me. What was the question? I apologize.
No worries. And anyone, feel free. What are some key indicators during a Scrum Master interview that the person interviewing you doesn't necessarily understand Scrum Master Agile language?
Are you saying the interviewer doesn't understand or the interviewee?
The interviewer. So let's
Okay.
sometimes
Okay.
you get a recruiter or you get somebody on that first level interview.
Yeah,
that might not.
the first thing I would say is, do they use the word project a lot? I mean, that's pretty much a key indicator. They're not really projects so much as they are, sprints, work that we have to do. Other thing is, they talk about delivery managers. They talk about timelines. We don't really try to follow timelines within Agile, because remember, we want the team to tell us they work together when they can get done. I know that we can actually have what I use within my team's target dates, that word. So that's another key thing. If people talk about scheduling meetings as an interviewee, or they talk about things where they're not putting themselves into the teams, let me say that, like getting down in the weeds, I call it, working directly with the team members, they're not getting involved. That is another key indicator, if that helps.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Sure.
probably a lot of if there's a lot of silence, and if the questions don't seem to follow the job description out, like if they can't have follow-up questions.
Yes, that's true.
About if they don't, if their questions are very, very short, and I guess no follow-up, that's what I'm trying to say, then they may not know which questions to follow up with. And so you just want to get through that first round so you can get to the next round where people have more of an understanding of Scrum, Agile things. Love the question here. How can you prepare for Scrum questions if you are shifting from a different position into Scrum Master position? First, so for me, when working with clients, I don't only work with Scrum Masters in the career space, but anytime you're trying to transition into a role, is be familiar with that role, what the responsibilities and tasks in that role are, what problems is that role trying to solve, and then be able to translate your skills, your experiences, your achievements into that language. You can use the job description. Often, in this particular example, let's say you take 3 Scrum Master job descriptions, you analyze those, and you pull out what are the key skills and responsibilities that overlap between those 3, and then figure out, how do you do that? How have you done that? How would you do that? And then how can the experience that you have translate into that experience? Often there are things that work well in bridging experience. So if you have experience leading teams, if you have experience trying to get things done in a quick turnaround, then your short 2-week sprints, or maybe you have a 4-week sprint, maybe you're going really long, right? You can do that, but then talk about making adjustments, evaluating processes, those things. So figure those things out, and be able to highlight that on your resume, and then practice answering those questions over and over again. one of the things that I didn't put in the tips, but ultimately you get to be the person who guides the interview. You get to answer the questions with the stories that best highlight you. Just make sure 2 things. Answer the question. I have way too many people who don't answer questions. They just give answers, but they never answered the question. So answer the question that was asked and be clear and concise. Answer the question, clarity, concision.
Actually, Michael,
always-
can we go to Srirachi? She has her hand up.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I just wanted to share a quick thought on how to prepare for Scrum questions when you are shifting from different position. So I think these are the 3 things you can break down your answer into. Like, for example, you are moving from teaching position to Scrum Mastery. Then you can explain, these are the 3 specific skills that currently I have that I utilize in teaching profession and that are still being utilized in Scrum Master position. These are the skills that I need to learn as new skills. So, and these are the things that I need to leave behind. So I think if we break down any skills into three categories, like these are the skills I need to carry with me, which I currently have. These are the skills I need to learn new to become successful, and something I need to leave behind. That explains in clarifying the interviewer that yes, this person is coming from different background, but is willing to and has a specific strategy to get transition into Scrum Master role. And not only that, I did it in my coaching program, and I got my coaches prepared for that. So I have some success stories also along with that using this strategy.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think that's great because there are a couple of more people in the chat asking similar questions about transitioning and how do you get a job doing this when you have to have years of experience and you don't have years of experience. One, that's hard. 2, it does create a little bit of a catch-22 sometimes. So here's what I would say for Brandon's question. I'll give a quick answer is, can you show 3 years of experience using the skills that they're looking for? Can you show 3 years of experience doing tasks that are similar to the tasks that you would be doing in the role? And then you just have to keep networking and keep applying. And then what I've seen work for people is somebody gives them a chance. So it's all in how you present your experience because they only see what you show them.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, good to see you. Hey, I have one quick question. So I will borrow a statement from
You went on mute there. Do you want to unmute again so we can hear your question?
Yeah, somebody muted me. I don't know why. It's a host muted you. So I have a question. Just like here's a Suruchi has implemented agile practice across 3 teams, increasing team productivity by 25% or whatever is it. There's another one is 20%. Since I'm looking for a job, I have been going to the many job fair, and also we have a job club every 2 weeks in Minnesota. So recently, one person from HR was saying if you can validate that 25%, 20%, whatever you have in your resume, only put those percentage if you can validate. Since I work as a contractor everywhere, so there will be no one to validate my those percentage. I was a contractor, so I didn't have any information or phone number from the company or from the business person. So how can I rewrite those kind of statement?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and I'm happy for other people to answer that in the chat too, especially. And I think one of the things for me that I see often, and I think it's Rupesh, is be able to explain that in the interview is, okay, how did you measure that 35%? And then if you can tell them how you measured it, then that often gives enough information to them for you. It's when people say that I did this by 35% and then they don't actually have a clear how did you measure that? to get to the 35% number that is going to be an issue for people. So if you increased, like sprint velocity or sprint delivery or something like that, like, okay, well, how did you measure that? What does that mean for them? And be able to answer that question in the follow-up is what I would suggest, because sometimes, again, I don't know what the interviewer would want right there necessarily. It would depend on the interviewer and what they were expecting you to have as far as documentation for validation. So again, for me, it's be able to answer the follow-up questions.
Yes, I completely agree with Michael. And because the discussion is around what I shared in the chat, I would like to pitch in. I would definitely have entire background behind what I'm saying. For example, okay, when I joined as a Scrum Master, before that period, the velocity was this much. Then I implemented blah, blah, blah. After these many sprints, it has been enhanced by this number, and this is how I calculated. So whenever you're saying something, you should be able to answer any number of sub questions, and you should anticipate those sub questions and be ready for it. Otherwise, don't throw the numbers, because interviewers are, of course, definitely smart enough than you, and you should accept that smartness and be ready for everything.
No, that's exactly right. And I think, again, oftentimes the validation they're wanting is just, how did you measure that?
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Suruchi.
I do want to mention that I believe it was Jeremy in the chat was asking about transitioning to a Scrum Master role after being a software engineer and leading cross-functional teams. One of the main things that you can do is a very strong marketing tool for yourself is explain your experience actually being on a sprint team and understanding from the inside out how it works, because so many Scrum Masters do not have that. And there is an edge for you. That's how I spent many, many years on a sprint team before I was a Scrum Master, and that helped market me. So just be prepared to explain all your experience. So like managing dependencies and cross-functional teams and all of those things around being in a sprint team, that will really give you an edge. I hope that helps.
That's great advice. Thank you, Charlene. Definitely being able to talk about working through backlogs and all the experience you have doing those things, for sure.
I wonder if you can actually ask for some of those extra responsibilities if you're in the job still and you haven't transitioned yet. Like say, hey, I'm considering going in this path, can I, work towards that by taking on these responsibilities? And, hopefully they say yes.
Hopefully they do, because that's exactly how my agile career launched. Was I was in a QA role for many, many, many years, and I started subbing for the Scrum Master when they were out or had another meeting to go to, and that put me in when they were on vacation, and that put me in. And so that's how I started. But I had already had many, many years of experience being on a sprint team, and then I just dove head into it. So that was my avenue. So I encourage anybody that's been on a sprint team, there is an edge for you, for sure.
And I think that's all. I love it. One way to do it too is like position yourself, like if you're on LinkedIn, then be active in Scrum community, make posts about Scrum life, Agile life, talk about sprints, talk about impediments, talk about the different things that you're doing. And again, help position yourself so that more people see you in that way. I often work with my clients on branding, and it's how people see them. So people only see what you show them. So you show them what you want them to see. And if you want them to see you as a Scrum Master, then you have to show yourself as a Scrum Master. Again, not about lying, but it's about how do you do the things, how do you have experience doing the things that you would be doing in that role? So all great points.
Yeah. And one other thing I want to mention for the people who are out of work and looking for a way, contact Atlanta Tech Village. In Atlanta, they have opportunities for, it is an actual volunteer position, but you can volunteer to be a Scrum Master for any like startup type project that they're working on or solution they're working on. And there you can get your experience. I know it's a volunteer, but it gives you experience to put on your resume if you don't have any. Yeah, thank you for sharing the link, Jeremy, in there for the Atlanta Tech Village. They do that all the time. Also, there's another site that I'll share in there called Simply Agile. That's a platform that I helped promote and get out there, like to set up from the Agile perspective. They will help job seekers as well. So I'll put a link to that. Thanks.
Arlene, I'm kind of would like to know if it's remote based. I think a lot of folks in here might not be in the Atlanta area.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
It's kind of like a mixture of everything. So it doesn't hurt to ask and then find out, where they can fit in, so to speak.
Oh man, volunteer work plus getting skills, that's like gold on your resume. So if you can find something on this, I think that's an excellent opportunity.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Great discussion, you all. I'm super excited about the connections that you're making, the networking that's happening, the way that you're supporting each other. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Michael. These were great tips. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Ultimately, I just wanted to get a good conversation going, and I'm so thrilled with how it's turned out.
So, Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I really appreciate this webinar or this meeting today. It's very helpful for me. I'm taking notes and listening to everyone's opinion. I would like, if possible, your opinion or anyone else that is in hiring decisions. What is your opinion on the probability of the likelihood of someone who has maybe other managerial experience, those 3 years, to actually transition into Scrum? Like, how probable is that in your opinions?
Well, I'm not in the hiring space, so I can't speak to that. I have had clients transition from other industries, other backgrounds like education, into Scrum, but I've also seen people not be able to do it. So your question is very valid. What I would suggest, in my opinion, and then I'll let others answer, is networking is going to be your best thing. If you can get a connection to somebody who is a decision maker or can connect you to the decision maker so that they can meet you and give you a floor with them, then you have opportunity to showcase your skills.
Sure.
So
and get higher on that list of people who, the thousands of people who have applied for the job. Yeah, it's crazy. I think networking is so key. But that's the hard part, is trying to get those connections into the right place. I think that's where the finesse happens.
Yeah, so I will tell you, I am in the hiring position. So I've had that come across my plate as well. Networking is key. It is not about who you may be directly connected with, but who they know and how you bridge that connection to get to them and then cultivate it. But more than anything, in my position, as I do interviews for Scrum Masters, if you have someone who doesn't have direct Scrum Master experience, but they have management experience, I'm looking to see what technical skills have they tried to learn? What do they know about? Okay, so if you show that initiative, then it's more of a good consideration than if you just say, I've managed teams and talk about the management. It's not just that. You have to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk of understanding. When I throw out terms like Kafka queues and, I need you to understand what that means before we even go further in a conversation. So I would say, look and see if you can learn all you can about whatever the job requirement says, right? Look and see if you can find out. If you don't know it, go start Googling it, research it, whatever you need to do. Reach out to your connections to learn more about it. But more than anything, get involved in meetups like this. This is a great one. Not the only one, but get involved in meetups and, connect yourself to what I call super connectors, and find a mentor, get a mentor. That's another thing. Whatever you want to do, you got to start like walking the walk of it before you actually get the role. Unfortunately, these days, that's just how it works. So get a mentor to help guide you with learning those things and getting into the right position. So good luck with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And hey, Brandon, I want to add, like, go through a job description or two and look at each bullet and then figure out, okay, how can I say that I've done that? If you actually have done something that is relevant to that or aligns with that, and just be able to show how you can do the things, and not just that you can, but you have done it. It was just called something else. And then
Right.
when you get into your interview, that's where you can help people see how you can do the role. But first is convince yourself that you can do the role.
Exactly.
And then find ways to tell your story that align with the language that that role is looking for.
Okay.
And if you can do those things, granted, and everyone here has said it, networking is gold when you're trying to transition to a new field.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't tell your story, networking isn't going to help you either.
I
So
think
it's like,
also in that instance, knowing that honestly, job descriptions don't actually really describe to you what you're going to do. So having a really good understanding of what a Scrum Master does. So doing that research, interviewing some, people in the industry, getting that sort of knowledge, and having it ready just in case, because you could be thrown for a loop, because normally whatever is on the job description is not really what you talk about in the interview. So
no, that's for
Um,
sure. And the job descriptions are usually like ideal candidates, right? And nobody's meeting all those. So don't be like, oh, I didn't meet 90% of that. I didn't meet 100% of that. If you can meet 50% of those things, then okay, fine. But no, how do you do? And that's why I say take more than one job description and see what's overlapping. See what the skills are that multiple job descriptions list. See what the responsibilities are that multiple job descriptions list, and find kind of like the high yield things, and be able to talk about those things.
And I really appreciate all of your input. Typically, when I look at job descriptions, I can do the majority of it, overwhelming majority. But when you see that 3 years, it's like, oh wow.
And
Yeah,
just
Have the
just to
certification,
Yeah,
but
that's subjective. Don't take that personally, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
if
right.
you can prove your experience, don't worry about the years part of it. If you can prove I can do the job, more than likely they'll want to have a further conversation with you. So I want to encourage you with that, okay?
thank you.
Yeah, and also in addition to this, I mean, I really like how Michael broke that, like, okay, read the job description, each line, and have your own story to share about each line. But the thing is, they are going to have 15 different candidates having same story. Then what is something that you can share which is outstanding, which is different, which is creative? Because there are millions of Scrum Masters here, agile coaches, everyone knows, everyone is certified. What is something different that you have done? And be ready to share that. And then many times the interviewer immediately reacts like, oh, this is something I never heard in my previous from my previous candidates. So you should have that uniqueness about each line, because most of the lines everyone is ready to share their own story, which is generic. So basically adding your X factor is very important to get in top 2 candidates, top 3 candidates.
Absolutely agree. And I would even encourage you to reach out to someone in your network and do a mock interview to practice. Get some feedback from someone you know and trust that would be honest with you and not just say, yeah, that sounds good. You want that feedback that's honest.
Yeah, and that's great. We didn't talk about that. Thank you both, Charlene
Yeah.
and Saruchi. For all of us, like, be sure that you've developed your tell me about yourself answer that relates to Scrum Master. So you have to refer to yourself in the language you want other people to think of you. And so if you refer to yourself as something just like a manager or something like that, that's going to be really difficult. But if you can think about it in terms of, okay, I've led teams on quick timelines, quick turnarounds in sprint style, in agile style, even if you weren't in a Scrum Master role, how have you still done that? So when you talk about tell me about yourself, be sure that the direction that you're helping the interviewer go is in the direction you want to go. Because if you start the interview moving in the wrong direction, it's going to be really, really hard to course correct and help them redirect their thinking. So start that process. And that helps on the resume too. Like in your professional summary, like give a real quick, I've had a number of years leading teams, leading cross-functional teams to do X. And then talk about some of the technical skills that you have in your summary, and then move on to more specific bullet points about your achievements. So all good things. Hope it's helpful. So good to see you all here today. Thank you for your conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. It was really great to have you with us. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye.